Hello and welcome to this edition of the Ferrell Phelps Show. My guest today is Pastor E.A. Deckard. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
And to my immediate right is Deric Muhammad. Welcome to the show, Deric.
Honored to be here. Thank you for having me, sir.
Absolutely. These gentlemen are working on an initiative that's going to basically bring fathers together. And that was something that you actually came up with. Tell me a little bit more about how you were motivated to do that.
Well, being a child, growing up in the inner city, I was raised without a father myself. So I understand the pain of growing up fatherless. I believe that the problem with many of our young men and women in our community is that they feel rejected by their fathers. So they grow up fatherless and furious. Statistics say that 70% of the homes in our community are headed by black females, and that the male is pretty much absent from his children's life. We don't know exactly how true those statistics are, but we do know that we have a problem. So when Mother's Day rolls around, there's a big deal in the black community. As a matter of fact, I would go as far as saying that Mother's Day rivals Easter in the black community. But when Father's Day rolls around, there's a lull, there's a shadow of darkness, if you will, because our relationships with our fathers are not as they should be. So we thought that this Father's Day 2014,
Right.
we would have a day of encouragement for black fathers and their children to uplift and celebrate those brothers who are being good fathers and encourage those who need to do better.
Okay. I think that's fantastic. And I definitely think it's needed. And not only in the black community, but overall. I don't know if we're targeting specifically our community or we're targeting all fathers with this particular initiative.
Well, the door is open for all fathers, and we want to encourage all fathers. But our focus is on black fathers because right now that is where the need is greatest. Statistics say that 1 in 3 black males will see prison if incarceration trends do not change. Black males. When you look at the unemployment statistics, the black male is at the bottom rung of the ladder.
Wow.
Look at education statistics, health statistics. So there are unique obstacles that black males face in America that other males do not face. And earlier this year, our president, Barack Obama, held a press conference, and he enunciated the fact and elevated the conversation that we have to do something for minority males, for they face obstacles that others don't. And this is an initiative in the same spirit.
Wow. And that's excellent because a lot of times in order for anything to take place or to happen, light has to be shed on it.
Absolutely.
Yes. And if we keep it in darkness, nobody can see the light. We have to do that.
Right, and if I also may say real quickly, we're in a room that is carpeted. If you put someone at the 4 corners of every room and we were able to lift the carpet, everything on top of the carpet naturally comes up with it. So if the black man is at the bottom right now, we believe that if we lift him, the black family will come up, the white community will come up, the
Right.
Asian community will come up. When you lift from the bottom, everything else naturally rises.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, indeed.
And that's very well said. Pastor E.A. Deckard, I would like to ask you, how did you actually become involved in this initiative?
Well, about a little over a year ago, Brother Deric contacted me about a day of nonviolence. And it was very intriguing, a day of nonviolence. He was trying to get the church community involved in a day of nonviolence.
Yes.
And I didn't have to go and pray about it, think about it. The timing was perfect. I was just involved in a situation beginning of the school year in Spring High School, where one of my members was life flighted from Spring High School, being stabbed at school. I had the honor of doing the funeral service for the young man who was murdered at Spring High School this year. So I was very aware of the violence in our community.
Right.
That young men's lives were being taken, Trayvon Martin, things of that nature. That young black men's lives were being taken. So a day of nonviolence or a day of peace made sense to me. So initially we just jumped right on board and became a part of this day of nonviolence. And it's amazing how the divine order of God takes place. Initially I was just going to get involved in this one day of nonviolence. But our spirits were so kindred.
Okay.
Our passion to see a change, our passion to uplift men. It just so happens that we're both African American, and this is again the divine order of God. We grew up on the same block. A chain link fence. A chain link fence separate our homes. And we had never had a conversation. I was a little older.
Okay.
And my goals was on something else. I was, trying to get to the NFL and trying to do things of that nature. So when I was at home, I was in the house. I never really spent a lot of time outside the neighborhood.
Okay.
But years later, God brought us together, a Muslim brother and a Christian brother.
Mhm.
But the key word is brother, to
Right.
make a difference for other brothers. So what happens from a day of nonviolence became a movement. Now I am aggressively a part of Project Forward, which is a brainchild of Brother Deric Muhammad. Project Forward is a group of men that have come together to push the agenda of pushing men forward. So Project Forward is putting on this day of encouragement for black men. The day of encouragement for black men, again, it's no brainer. Why would I not want to be a part of a day of encouragement for black men when every other day black men are being castrated?
Right.
So this day we're going to celebrate black men. We're not going to tell them what's broken. They already know what's broken. We're going to bring solutions to fix what's broken, to make a difference.
I like that. And a lot of times, and it's interesting that you should say that, because I was just sitting here thinking to myself as you were speaking, I was like, okay, we're going to talk about this thing, but let's talk about those solutions too.
Yes.
How can we fix the problem? Because it's easy for us to sit back and talk about the problem,
Mhm.
but when we sit back and talk about it, we need to be able to offer solutions.
Exactly.
And I think that's very important. And also what's important, I like what you mentioned a moment ago when you said you have a Muslim brother and a Christian brother.
Mhm.
And the common thread is humanity.
Yes.
We're all human.
Well said.
Yes.
The common thread is humanity. And then our communities are so affected by crime, homes that are fatherless.
Mhm.
These are all the things that affect our community. And a lot of times, fatherless homes, those kids can end up living lives that are not refined to a certain degree. And you have a mom that's trying to be a dad.
Yes.
And you don't have the role model of the father in the home. So when we're able to collectively come together and maybe show men another way,
A better way.
a better way, that they can be there for their kids, because it's a domino effect.
Mhm.
And when they go out into the world, it affects society.
Yes.
From them being fathers and not being there for their kids,
Mhm.
from robbery, from murder. It's a lot of things that's attached to that. So talking about the solution, I think, is important. I want to ask you, Deric, what's one of the things that you feel like would be a great solution to this particular? I know there's no one solution,
Right.
but what do you think might be a good solution, or some things that could be key points to help?
Well, it may sound very simple, but Pastor Deckard came up with what we term the 10 Commandments of Fatherhood. And these are very easy to follow instructions about how it is that we could be better fathers. We don't believe that any of us are or have become such good fathers that we can't do any better. So on Father's Day, we're encouraging them. If you have been a bad father, we want to encourage you to be a good father.
Yeah.
You've been a good father, we want to encourage you to be a better father. If you've been a better father, we want to encourage you to be a great father. And if you feel like you just can't do no better, we want to encourage you to encourage somebody else
Right.
to be better for their children in their community. But the 10 Commandments of Fatherhood reminded me of the fact when I read it. As simple as it may sound, many of us, because fatherlessness has been so cyclical and generational in our community, that we just don't know how to be fathers. We just don't know. So we have children and we're learning on the job. And as you're learning on the job, you're naturally going to make mistakes.
Right.
And if you don't understand that everybody makes mistakes and you have to push through those mistakes, you might become discouraged and believe that you can't be a good father.
Right.
So one of the things that I believe that would be solutional are those things that we're doing that are instructional. In other words, we're saying, brother, we know that you don't know, but God has inspired us to put some things out there to help you that you might know.
Right.
The Bible says it like this: my people perish for the lack of knowledge. And to sit up and watch a man, ridicule a man for not being what he does not know how to be, instead of extending to him the wisdom to help him to become that, I believe is futile. So I think we have to teach first and foremost. We have to inspire and quicken the spirit of black men to be who they are now.
Yes, indeed.
Wow. I couldn't have said that any better. And it's so true. We have to do that. We have to take that position. And my saying, and I'm sure you guys have heard this before, each one reach one.
Yes.
Yes.
If each one of us could reach out to another brother and help him or show him direction or show him the way as best we can.
Yes.
That is the motto
Yes.
of Project Forward.
Is that right?
Yes, you didn't even know that.
Come on now.
But it is.
That is. All
Right.
things working together right here.
That's right.
Yeah, we're going to come back in just a moment with more of this wonderful conversation with Deric Muhammad and Pastor E.A. Deckard. All right, we'll be back in just a moment.
As long as you don't try to step beyond this point, I have no problem with you. As long as you remain in your place, I have no problem with you. As long as you stay under me, I have no problem with you. But you bet not step forward. Oh, I wish I had. See, y'all missing it. Y'all missing it. See, that's the thing about it, is that folk are happy as long as you are where you are.
Welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk About It, the Ferrell Phelps Show. I have with me Pastor E.A. Deckard, and also I have Mr. Deric Muhammad. Yes, we are talking about fathers and bringing fathers back basically to their rightful place and just trying to be role models for these dads that are out there in a positive way, because we hear so many negative things about dads all the time and fathers or absentee fathers all the time. So we want to encourage brothers to come together and take their place as fathers. And we want to uplift our brothers today. And that's what we're doing with Pastor E.A. Deckard and Deric Muhammad.
Yes,
now, when we left off, we were talking about the things that happen with fathers and when they're absent, and the things that can take place in communities when that happens. Now, I know that you grew up without your father, was that?
Correct, yes, sir.
What was that experience like for you?
It was a struggle because there were certain things that as a young boy I was inclined to naturally, but I did not have someone to help me channel that natural aggression in the right direction. So I became aggressive in a way that was destructive and not constructive.
Okay.
And it was only because I did not have a guide. But I remember that I really and truly wanted one. So, and I believe Pastor Deckard can attest to this experience as well. Along the way, I ran into men who did their best to point me in the right direction. And I believe that that is probably what saved me. And what we're trying to do is give back to the community that gave to us. As my brother already said, we grew up in the same area.
Right.
We grew up surrounded by prostitution, drug use, drug dealing, violence, murder, you name it, we grew up around it. But God placed a hedge of protection around us, and He placed angels along our path to help us point us in the right direction. So what we're trying to do nowadays is become angels, like those angels that pointed us in the right direction. We believe that we have a great debt that we have to pay to Almighty God and the community that raised us, and we're just trying to pay what's due.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. And it's not always easy to reach those fathers, is it?
Very difficult.
Well, anything worth obtaining is never easy.
Mm-hmm.
See, those things that come easily are really not worth attaining. So we understand our task is very difficult, but we also understand this. We owe God. You know? So because God spared us and has put us in a position to do different, we now have an obligation to do different.
That's right.
So Maya Angelou put it this way, the late great Maya Angelou said, you do what you do until you know how to do better. Well, we've been blessed to be in a position now that we know how to do better. So we owe our brothers, we owe our communities the obligation of us going back and sharing our experiences, both good and bad, to help others see the light that we now see. And if we don't, we're selfish.
Very well said. And you know what? It takes a lot of people in order for this to happen. You used to hear the saying,
Yes.
it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
And it takes a lot of men to come together to try to help these other men,
Yes.
like what you guys are doing. I want to just commend y'all right now
Thank
for doing this and making this happen in our communities. Now, this event is taking place in, is it McGregor Park?
Yes, the historical McGregor Park, June 15th, which we know is Father's Day. But we also know on Mother's Day, the restaurants are jam-packed from open to close. On Father's Day, they don't have those problems. So after you leave the church, the synagogue, or the mosque on Sunday morning of Father's Day, we want you to meet us at McGregor Park at 5 p.m. We're going to have a great day of entertainment, a great day of education. There's going to be all kind of activities. We have, as you see, several sponsors that are helping us put this event on. There will be flag football, basketball for fathers before the event. But at 5 o'clock, and listen, everything is absolutely free.
Absolutely.
So no one has an excuse why I can't afford to get
There
there.
it is.
Everything, we've paid the price. Everything is free. Just show up and get this. We're saying fathers, but we want every single mother.
That's right.
Every single mother to bring your children to McGregor Park because they can see an example of what a positive man looks like. Maybe little Johnny hasn't seen a real role model in a long time.
Right.
Bring him to McGregor Park so he can have a different image. Bring your little girls to McGregor Park so they can have a different image. It's for everybody. 5 o'clock, June 15th at McGregor Park.
Man, that's going to be fantastic. That is going to be
Yes.
fantastic. Now, we were talking about the issue of fathers, and we were going in the direction of solutions. What are some of the things that you might feel would be a good solution in order to help? I know we're doing the event,
Yes.
and let's talk about life after.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
The event.
Okay. Well, one of the things we're doing is we have solicited a team of attorneys. Because a lot of times, some of the brothers who are absent, they're not absent because they desire to be absent. They're absent because they've been told they cannot play a role in their child's life. This is the reality.
Yes.
We didn't all do it the right way. Some of us had children before we said I do. So if you and the mother, as in our community we call it baby mama drama.
Right.
So if you're experiencing baby mama drama and the mother says, you can't come see your son this weekend. If you don't know your rights as a father, you will say, well, she's the mother, she called the shots. But no, you have some legal rights as a
Right.
father. You have some birth-given rights as a father. So we're going to have some attorneys that will help communicate those laws and rights to you so you'll be able to take your right position as a father.
Right.
No matter what it takes, you should fight whatever battles you need to fight to be present in your son and daughter's life. Don't let anybody stop you from being involved in your son or daughter's life. It's vital. Bill Cosby, who won several awards, he said it like this: the greatest achievement I've ever achieved was the achievement of being called a father. So we want to encourage every man that the best thing you've ever done in this life is to become a father. Don't waste that opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what do you have to say about that?
I have to say that, you know, Pastor Deckard talked about the legal barriers that are placed in front of some brothers, and because they don't understand fathers' rights, they allow that to stop them. We want brothers to take what we call a by any means necessary attitude
I
of
like
being
that.
a good
I like
father
that,
to your
yeah.
children. So we've come up with what we call the 4 E's of child support. We want to redefine what child support is. See, that term has such a negative connotation when we hear it. We run from it.
Right.
Yes.
But no man should ever run from the idea of supporting his child. So the 4 E's of child support are, first and foremost, encouragement. We want fathers to use their voice to encourage their children to be the best that they can be. There's nothing like the encouraging voice of a father. Nothing. The second E is called education. We want men to understand that the most powerful thing that you can pass on to your children is knowledge.
Yes.
But you cannot pass on what you yourself do not have. So
Right.
we have to become educated so that we can teach our children knowledge. And if we pass on knowledge to our children, it's something that the IRS cannot take away from you.
Yes,
They can take away the money. They can take away the land. They can take away anything else that you pass on to your children. But if you pass on to them wisdom, nobody can take that away from you. The third E is self-explanatory, and it's called economics, which is a very, very, very
Huge.
real category. Because sometimes we allow economics to stop us from being in our child's life. Let's face it, black men just don't have jobs these days like they should. What we want to do is inspire brothers to go out and make a job for yourself. Remember, by any means necessary.
Right.
No excuses. And the last E is, what was the last E?
We've said education,
Economics.
encouragement, economics, and empowerment.
And no, it's emotional.
Emotional.
The last E is emotional.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
emotional.
Growing up in a world that has the negative pull on our children the way this one does, there is no child that does not need the emotional support
Yes.
of their father,
Yeah.
especially girls. So those are the 4 E's that we want men to focus on. And if you look at those 4 E's, you'll find somewhere where you can improve.
Wow.
Emotional.
Very well said. Very well said. And that's what it takes. It takes all the 4 E's in order for us to be successful and for the kids to be successful.
Yes.
Because everything has a domino effect.
Right.
Exactly.
You know, what happens in the home oftentimes spills out into the world.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times with the young men, when they don't have dads, they become dads and they're absent like their dad.
Yes.
Right.
But when we can, there you go. It's like a vicious cycle. I'm enjoying this dialogue so much, and you guys are distilling so much wonderful information that I know is going to bless the people that's falling on their ears. And we could talk about this all day, but we're going to be back in just a moment with more of this show, and we're going to talk a little bit about something that's taking place with another father in another city by the name of Alfred Wright. And I know you guys may have heard about what's going on or what has gone on in that county. We're going to talk about that a little bit more when we come back.
The search is over and the rumors can now be put to rest after the body of Alfred Wright was found only feet away from where he was last seen. Good evening to you, East Texas. I'm Ferrell Phelps. Glad you're with us tonight. After 3 weeks of search efforts by foot and air, the body of 28-year-old Jasper man who went missing in Hemphill earlier this month has been found. Despite the ground search being called off, Alfred Wright's body was found about 50 yards away from his actual disappearance site. Our East Texas News 9's Michelle Reed has been covering the story from the very beginning and went out to the dark and rainy recovery site tonight to find out more on this evolving mystery.
The search for Alfred Wright has come to a somber end.
They're being family, they're tore up by it, you know, so they're in deep sorrow.
Private investigator Chuck Foreman says the Wright family hired him last week to help them continue the ground search efforts to find Alfred. And that's when they stumbled upon his body 50 yards in the woods, right near Customs Road in Hemphill, where Alfred was last seen.
As long as you don't try to step beyond this point, I have no problem with you. As long as you remain in your place, I have no problem with you. As long as you stay under me, I have no problem with you. But you bet not step forward. Oh, I wish I had. See, y'all missing it. Y'all missing it. See, that's the thing about it is that folk are happy as long as you are where you are.
All right, welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk About It. You guys may know my guest already, Pastor E.A. Deckard, and also Mr. Deric Muhammad. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
We left off talking about, the 4 E's, which were things that definitely will empower young men that was very important. And we also were segueing into talking about a murder that happened with a father in a small county that was really heinous. It was horrible. The guy's name was Alfred Wright. Now, I know that you have some familiarity with that story.
Yes, sir.
And what happened. What is it that you know about that?
Well, Alfred Wright went missing, I believe, back in November, if I'm not mistaken. And he was missing for several weeks. And the sheriff in that particular county, they started the search, but several days after, they shut it down. They shut it down prematurely. And the sheriff even said something to the effect that maybe Alfred was somewhere sitting around getting high. But his family loved him so, and they were so resilient that they began to search areas that they had been forbidden to search by the county. And unfortunately, they found the brother's body, and it appeared that he'd been beaten, his tongue had been cut out, his eyes had been gouged, and it appeared that he had been literally tortured. So it was an unfortunate incident that took place in the same area where our brother James Byrd was murdered. And so we just keep that family in our prayers, and we're doing everything that we can to support them to get justice for the Wright family.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
When I watched it, I actually saw some of the news clippings from it. And I actually saw that far later than when it actually occurred. I missed it. And I went back through the archives of CNN to get more information on the murder. But it was one of the most heinous things I'd ever heard of or seen in my life.
Yes.
When they talked about what was done to this young man's body. And I think he was age 27.
He was a young man.
A young man, married with kids.
Yes.
And
professional young man.
Exactly.
College graduate. Yes, sir.
And somehow, I think maybe the car stopped somewhere.
Yes.
From what I understood,
his truck stalled, and he was calling for help, and the help didn't arrive as fast as whoever came and did whatever they did to him. But it was a horrific incident. And during the break, we were having a conversation, and Pastor Deckard was talking about how people lose the knowledge of themselves and end up ending a beast life.
Right.
Whoever did this to Alfred Wright at that moment had turned from a human being into a beast.
Right.
They went from having a heart of flesh to having a heart of stone. And as we go through the paces of building up for a day of encouragement for Father's Day, we want to publicly encourage the father of Alfred Wright Sr., because this will be the first day in 20 plus years that he will have to spend Father's Day without his son.
Yes.
So our hearts are very heavy, and we want to lift him up and encourage him on the day of encouragement.
Right.
As we do all fathers, no matter what your race, your religion, your culture is. If you've lost your son or your daughter to a situation such as this, we want to lift you up and encourage you and say, God bless you.
And you know, you mentioned Alfred Wright's father losing his son, but Alfred Wright's children have lost their father.
Absolutely.
His wife has lost her husband.
Yes, sir.
It's such a domino effect.
Yes.
And it's sad when we see these types of things happening to our brothers.
Yes.
In society today.
Yes.
And oftentimes we think that when we see an African American president, we've arrived, we've gotten somewhere. We you know, and then you see this happen.
Yes.
You see James Byrd, you see Alfred Wright. Look at these things.
The reality of it is, I love my president, but that's one isolated incident. What we see on a regular basis is a negative image, a negative picture, the devalue of a black man. I'll make it crystal clear. It's not by coincidence. I'll give you an example. Michael Vick, well-known African-American quarterback in the NFL.
Yes, sir.
Got into trouble for dogfighting, which was wrong. Spent some time in the penal system because of dogfighting. Yet, this generation of black kids have seen story after story where black boys in Chicago, D.C., Florida, Texas have been murdered, and no one served a day for the murder of a black boy. So what does this tell a little black boy in the back of his mind?
Absolutely.
That a dog, a pit bull, has more value in America than me as a black male. So he becomes a savage. Not because he desires to be bad, he's protecting himself because America has told him his life has no value.
Yes. And I think that in order for us to face the issues of the present, we have to look at the issues of the past. We have to remember that we were not brought to America on the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, and we certainly weren't brought here on the Love Boat. We were brought to America in the holds of ships. And we have to look at how 300 plus years of physical bondage, I'm talking about working from sun up to sundown, how did that affect our family dynamic? And how does that play into the lifestyle that we lead today as it relates to our families? I like to tell a story. This is a true story of a woman. This was in the early 1900s. She was writing her memoirs about her experience growing up as a slave. She says she was born on a plantation with her biological mother and father. She says that she didn't even know that she was a slave because she was surrounded by the love of both of her parents. Wow. But the mean old slave master sold her father to the plantation down the street. And he told him, do not come back to my property. Well, that man defied him. He was bent on being a father to his daughter, and he was bent on being a husband to his wife. So at the wee hours of the morning, 3 a.m., he would sneak down there to check on his family. But the slave master was so mean and hateful that he would deprive himself of sleep and stay up all night long waiting for him.
Wow.
So every time he came, he would beat him. And that lady said she would sometimes wake up in the morning and she would see a trail of blood leading back to the plantation where her father worked, because the slave master had beat him all the way back to the plantation where he had been sold for trying to be a father to his daughter. And she said one day she followed that trail of blood and it led to her father's body. This man went to his death trying to be a father to his child and trying to be a husband to his wife. To his credit, he died on his post. But at the same time, these are things that happen to us day after day for hundreds of years. So when you look at us and the condition that we're in today, when you study our history, it begins to make sense. But we don't want to use the past as an excuse. What we want to do is encourage brothers. Let them know that the cycles in our family can very well be broken through the power of God, the power of knowledge, and the power of our unity.
Yes,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But that's a true story.
Wow. Man, and what an awesome story that is. But it speaks to the type of brother that must have been.
Yes.
Who cared enough about his family and his kids to go through being beaten and tortured and abused physically on a regular basis just because he wanted to see his kids. But it says a lot about who
that
man
mindset
was.
is what we're trying to instill now.
Right.
We're trying to not indict the black man. We're trying to incite the black man.
Go ahead.
To take back the spirit of being a father. Don't let anybody, any system, and don't make any excuse why you cannot be a father. So just like that man was willing to put everything on the line to be a father, we must, in the 21st century, in 2014, we must eliminate every excuse and go and be a father to our children. They need us. They need us. I often give this illustration that when I was growing up, I used to play jigsaw puzzles.
Okay.
And the key was all of these little pieces inside this box. But I had the box cover, which had a picture of what ultimately all these pieces would connect and look like. As long as I had the box cover, no matter how difficult the puzzle was, I could keep going. Keep putting pieces, because I had something to look at. I had an image that one day, if I keep putting the piece together, it's going to look like this. Well, that image, that box cover, is the father. When the father is removed, all of these pieces are trying to connect with no identity of what I'm supposed to look like. So little boys join gangs because they don't know what they're supposed to look like. Little girls end up getting with men that are dangerous for them because they don't know what they should look like. So the whole family is trying to put pieces together, not knowing what fits where, so then you become frustrated. And a frustrated person becomes a desperate person. A desperate person commits desperate acts. We now in survival mode, trying to put pieces together that don't fit. We got to remove the image of the father not being there. Bring the box top back, so no matter how difficult these pieces are, I'll have the strength to keep putting it together until it makes sense.
Wow. You know, it's so important that we can paint a picture on the canvas of our imagination
Yes.
when we're talking about these types of things. And when you talk about a jigsaw puzzle and having the pieces that you would look at as a foundation to start from
Yes.
and start putting things together. But can you imagine not having that foundation, not having that picture to look at
Yes.
in order to emulate, to know the direction to go in from phase 1 to phase 2
Well,
to
you
phase 3?
become lost.
You become lost.
And to get here, to do this show, you have to give us an address. Then we GPS that address, which gave us a map of how to get here. If you just said, come to my studio, we would still be riding around somewhere, lost. Our intention would be to have gotten here. But
Right.
without a set of directions, no matter how big our heart was, we still would be lost somewhere. And there are a lot of young black boys and young black girls who have good hearts, good intentions, but no direction, so they end up lost. And if you end up lost long enough, you settle for wherever you are.
And when you settle for where you are, we end up seeing you somewhere in the system,
In the courtroom.
Yes.
in the courtroom. It manifests in that way. And then you're building a whole different platform or a whole different image for other little kids that are coming up behind you. They see that image, and that's what they end up emulating.
Yes.
So we have to continue to paint a beautiful picture on that canvas, and a real picture for our young men,
Yes.
so that they will have a foundation and something to go by, so that their lives can be better. And when their lives are better, everybody's life gets better.
Exactly.
It's a domino effect. We have a question from the audience. Yes.
Yes, my question is, how do you guys feel about this 2-year-old daughter was killed by her father because he did not want to pay child support and he drowned her? And this just happened in the media about a week or so ago.
Wow.
Well, I'm going to get a little deeper. Behind that story, there was another story. That young man, at some point in his life, lost his identity of who he was. He responded like a beast because somewhere along the pathway of life, he's bought into this notion that he himself was no more than an animal, than a beast. So anything that was produced from him was not a real human, but a byproduct of another beast. I really don't feel in my spirit that money was the reason he killed his child. He killed his child because he did not see the value of who his child was, because when he looks in the mirror, he does not see the value of who he is. So if that child was a byproduct of him and he thinks lower of himself, then he thinks lower of that child. So it was easy to throw that child in the river because it's easy for him to say, I am nobody. So we must encourage him and other brothers, you are somebody. So the actions you commit must be actions of a man that's worthy.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That's just, I hear so much news that it's just shocking for me. It takes me aback when I hear some of the stories that are happening with our young men. For a man to take his seed,
Yes.
and to discard it in a river to get rid of it?
But if your image of that seed, a seed produces something. So if that seed has been installed in you is weed, junk, negative, you know, the wheat and the tares work together. So if you've been told all your life that what you're producing is useless, you know, the wheat are the other people. The things that are useful, have purpose, that's for the other people. But you're nobody. You're an animal. You're a gangster. You're a thug. You're this. So this young man has been sold a bad bag of goods. So he has no value. So everything he produces has no value. And those stories are all true. But you know the stories we don't hear? Last week my brother spoke at a graduation of middle school kids. The auditorium, they had to change locations because so many parents showed up. And so many fathers showed up to their kids' graduation. They had to relocate the graduation to accommodate all the fathers who showed up. We won't see that on the news, though.
Right.
We won't see that on the news. Meaning who took off work to be at their kids' graduation. You won't see it on the news. We got to go back and rewrite the stories. We got to make sure we put this image up. And let me address this. On June 15th, Brother Deric had a wonderful idea that I hope spread and go viral. We want to have Selfie Sunday, in which fathers take pictures of themselves with their children with a great big smile and blast it on social media.
I love it.
Selfie Sunday.
Yeah.
We got to change the image of the black father.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I'm having such a wonderful time with this dialogue. I could go on all day. We got to take a pause for the cause. We're going to be back in just a moment with more of Let's Talk About It and a couple of questions from our studio audience. You guys stick around.
I don't just want, oh my God, this small thing. See, because God, you know how to give good gifts. I wish I had somebody to your children. But now if I ask you for a fish, if my child asks for a fish and I know how to get a fish, that's good. I can give them the it of the fish. But my faith is not just for the fish. I want the river that the fish was swimming in.
All right, welcome back to the Ferrell Phelps Show. You guys, we are having such stimulating and educational dialogue today that it's just mind-blowing. You're dispensing so much important information, and I know when the general public gets to see this, they're going to be educated, motivated, and inspired by what they've heard here today because of you guys. So I sincerely thank both of you for taking time out of your schedules to come. I wanted to talk about the role that media plays in how we see ourselves as African-American men. And I'm going to start with you.
Yes. I believe that the media plays a major role, which is why programs like this are so important, because we get the opportunity to paint our picture. You know, we talked earlier about the statistics saying that 70% of the households in the black community are headed by black females. We hear about that statistic all the time. But last year, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, did a study, and they said of all the fathers of all the races in America that spend time with their children on a daily basis, that black fathers spend more time in the day-to-day lives with their children than white fathers, Latino fathers, Asian fathers, anyone else. We're more involved. And now this is coming from the CDC. You can look it up. Now, but you ask yourself the question, why is it that we hear about the negative statistics as it relates to black fathers, but we don't hear about the positive ones? See, it's because there has been a move to demonize black men, and in particular black fathers. And let me give you just a short illustration of that. Look at some of the entertainers that we love. Look at Floyd Mayweather, the best boxer among us in our era, right? His father had him in the gym, boxing at 4, 5, 6 years old. He went on to become one of the most successful fighters in the history of the sport.
Right.
But when they speak of his father, they say things like it's Floyd Sr.'s fault that Floyd didn't have a childhood. They never give him credit for the success of his son. Look at our dear sister Beyonce. It was not her mother, from what I understand, who was the driving force in her career early on in her life. It was her dad.
Yes.
She's probably the most successful artist out today. But when they speak of her dad, they speak of, out of wedlock children, his personal life, things that are not even their business. But they don't even give the man credit for the success of his daughter. They would rather give the mother credit. And the mother she deserves the credit that she deserves. But don't just blot out the impact that this man has had on his children.
Right.
Look at our dear brother. Look at Michael Jackson, the greatest entertainer that ever lived. This man produced a dynasty. Joe Jackson, his father. But when they speak of Joe Jackson, what do they say? It's his fault that Michael didn't have a childhood.
Right.
But were it not for Joe Jackson, there would have been no Michael Jackson. He gets no credit. Look at Venus and Serena's dad. Beautiful brother. He's controversial. He speaks his mind, but he protected his daughters from the streets of Compton.
Yes.
He used a VHS tape to teach his daughters how to play tennis, and they changed the world.
Yeah.
But when they speak of him, they speak of his personal issues.
Right.
They never want to give a black man credit, even when he has tried to be there for his children. They rather focus on the worst part of him than the best part of him. So the day of encouragement, we are calling this on Father's Day the day of encouragement, because black men need encouragement, because there is a move by the media to demonize us, to our children, to our women, to our communities, and to our families. So we have to lock arms and lift one another up. If they don't lift us up, we got to lift one another up.
Yes, indeed.
You know what's important is that we redefine the picture that's on that canvas.
There it is.
Yes.
And it's our responsibility to redefine what the world sees.
We got to do it.
We have to redefine that by having positive role models, by exposing people that are doing the right thing in life.
Yes.
We see enough negative stuff. We got to find ways to put it out there so that the world can see who black men really are. Because a lot of times you only see one side of who the black man is.
That's right.
Yes.
We want to show them all the facets and all the capabilities that we have as brothers. And I think what you guys are doing on June 15th, collectively coming together to make something happen like this in the city of Houston, is phenomenal. And that is definitely the start. And I know that what's going to happen from that is just like leaves on a tree. When they fall, they go in different places. And when all these people come together on the 15th, they go back to different homes, different communities, different areas that can make a difference in this society and in Houston, Texas, when it comes to fathers. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And so it's so important with what you guys are doing. And again, I say, I tip my hat to you brothers for doing this here. And y'all make me proud to be a brother. Not that I wasn't before, because I always have been proud of my heritage and who I am as a black man. And I think it's important that we are, we see ourselves as important, because when we don't see ourselves as important and we don't see ourselves as valuable, we go out into society and we do different things that definitely can kill us and other people, because we're not valuing who we are.
That's a fact.
Yes.
You know? And if we want to start with home, I say this often, everything starts with the home.
Everything.
The home is the foundation.
Yes.
And it's just like a house. If the foundation is cracked, you're going to have issues that are going to happen.
Yes,
you're going to have walls that are going to get lines in them because there's cracks in it.
Yes.
When we can fix the cracks or prevent the cracks from happening, then we're on our way to something.
Yes, indeed.
And with what you guys are doing on the 15th, you're starting to prevent some cracks from taking place.
Seal them up.
You're starting to seal up some cracks. You're starting to paint a different picture
Yes.
on the canvas of our imagination.
Yes.
You know, we talked about the Cosby Show. And the effect that the media had. When we got to see the Cosby Show, it made us believe that we too can aspire to do what we saw happening in the Huxtable household.
Pick your head up.
All right? So that's the kind of stuff that we need to see more of.
Yes.
We talked about Good Times a moment ago off camera. Good Times certainly had its place in the black community. You saw a black family in struggle. You saw a black family not giving up.
Yes.
In spite of what was taking place in that household. In spite of Michael getting in trouble at school. In spite of James losing his job. He still persevered. That was a positive role model. And so when we see things like that, it blesses us as black people. We need to see more of that in the media now.
That's right.
Yes.
And on our television sets, because guess what? The black community is so hooked on reality shows till it's ridiculous now.
Yes, indeed.
And again, when we talk about the black man being demonized, when you sit up and you see these reality shows with all these brothers doing all these seedy things on TV, in reality television, they paint a whole different picture now. And guess what? As they're painting that picture, those young boys, those young kids that are seeing it, decide, guess what? I want to emulate that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
They're making money with that.
Right. Yes.
We have to take responsibility for ourselves and start to change what we see in media and social media. So it's our responsibility.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, sir.
It's our responsibility. And you know, to have these kind of conversations, sometimes they don't feel good, but it's for the higher good.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. I like
It's
that.
for the higher good. And if we can't talk about it, we can't fix it.
Yes,
right.
yes.
But by us coming together collectively today as brothers, we getting along, we having a wonderful time.
Yes, indeed.
And the focus of this moment is to bless and aspire other young men that are out there.
Yes.
And we have to teach them to be responsible. But if that foundation is cracked,
Yes.
it becomes a challenge. I want to ask you guys any final thoughts you want to say about this particular issue. I'm loving the dialogue.
Well, as we were just talking then, it made me remember something. We did a black male summit a few months ago. A couple of hundred middle school, high school kids showed up to this black male summit at Rice University. Those kids went back and wrote essays about the experience at the Black Male Summit.
Yes.
I was privileged to teach one of the classes, and I stated to every kid in there, you are a winner. You competed in your mother's womb, you won, you came out successful, you came out a winner. Don't ever let anybody rob you of your identity of being a winner. I had several other points in the lecture, but to my amazement, when the kids wrote the essays, each kid wrote somewhere in some shape, form, or fashion on the essay, they remembered the preacher telling them they were winners. So for the rest of their life, whenever they're faced with a struggle, a situation, or a circumstance that would try to demonize them, something inside them, no, I'm a winner. I must respond like a winner. So what I'm saying is, it's time for us to stop making excuses and get involved. By our involvement with those kids at Rice University, now they left feeling good about themselves, that we are winners. And a winner understands sometimes you may have some difficult battles, but you're still a winner. Keep pressing on. So I'm just thankful that we have the spirit of pressing on and creating a generation of winners.
Absolutely. And I always say, quitters never win and winners never quit. In order to win, you got to stay in the game.
That's right.
Yes.
You can't falter. You can't drop out of the game. You can't let a loss determine what your future is going to be. And a lot of times, when we lose or we feel like we've lost, we want to drop out of the game. And we start not to care. We don't care about ourselves. We don't care about our parents. We don't care about anything. But when you know that you're a winner, and when that's been instilled in you, that you are a winner, no matter what, you are a winner. And to hear that type of verbiage, that type of word coming from a dad, from a male, is powerful for a kid.
One of the 10 Commandments is the father must become the loudest voice in your child's ear. We usually think of cheerleaders being mothers or women, but I describe that the father should be the biggest cheerleader in their son or daughter's life. We should be the one to tell you, yes you can, yes you can, yes you can. Go and be what your creator created you to be. And the father's voice must be the loudest voice telling that child what they can become.
Amen. Absolutely. And we need more of that, and I think that's wonderful. We have one more question from our studio audience. Yes, Tony?
A quick question to go back to what you just said about that dad being the loudest voice. What do you do when that dad is not the loudest voice and he's that negative voice in your soul and in your ears?
Well, two things. That's a two-way street. First of all, to that child who's not receiving the encouragement from their father, to that single mother who's doing the best she can in that situation, surround your son or your daughter with some other positive voices. I don't believe that God will create anybody and put him in a situation to fail. So if the natural father is not doing what he should be doing, that mother has the responsibility. At my church, we call it the greenhouse, because a greenhouse is a place you take plants and reroute them, regrow them in a place where they can grow all over again, reach their full potential. So if your son or daughter is not in a positive environment, as a mother, get your child, get your daughter, get your son in a positive. There are a bunch, and I say a bunch of positive black men. You got to stop finding negative black men and surround your children with some positive black men. And then for that father, we have to pray for him. We have to encourage him, but also in a very loving fashion, positive men need to get in his face and remind him of the privilege and the honor it is to be a father.
Amen.
And if I may very quickly add to what the pastor said, when I speak to young people, I know that I'm speaking to children oftentimes who have acts of violence committed against them on a daily basis. And I'm not even talking about physical violence. I'm talking about the words that are spoken to them on a daily basis.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's violent to their minds, it's violent to their spirit, their souls, and their future. So sometimes I go right to the child and I tell them, I talk to them about the grasshopper inside of the shoebox, and how if you place a grasshopper inside the shoebox, it keeps hitting the ceiling. At first, the grasshopper is saying, I can. But when you hit the ceiling enough times in a dark place, I can turns into I can't. The voice inside the grasshopper's head begins to change. So what I tell children is, do not allow your circumstances, to change the voice inside of your head. Even if your mama tells you what you can't do, you tell your mom, Mom, I love you, but you cursing at me right now. Can't is a curse word that we should never use around children. If your dad, you tell your father, I want to be a brain surgeon when I grow up, Dad. And your dad say, you know what, boy, you can't do that. Say, Dad, I love you, but you got to go wash your mouth out with soap because you cussing at me right now. They say that the song that they sing in the church, it says, speak over yourself. Encourage yourself. So I tell children that if there's nobody in your life encouraging you right now, you speak over yourself and you encourage yourself in the Lord.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. And you know what? And just like the Word of God says, life and death is where?
In the tongue.
In the power of the tongue.
Preach,
the
brother.
things that we say can either destroy us or it can uplift us and make a difference in our lives. We got to be careful of the words that come from our mouths and the words that we speak to the kids and the young men. And no parent should ever say to a child, you cannot or you will never become. You have to remember as a parent, you have a responsibility to create a seed that's going to go out into the world and make a difference.
That's right.
And if you're putting words into your child saying you can't, that ain't going to help your child.
Yes.
Life and death, again I say, is in the power of the tongue. I hope you guys have enjoyed this segment of Let's Talk About It, the Ferrell Phelps Show, as much as I have. And I just want to pay homage to my father, Mr. Ferrell Phelps Sr., who passed away in 2002. And he was a dad that was present and definitely made a difference in my life. So I'm very thankful for that. And he was an entrepreneur, and he taught me entrepreneurship. And he would oftentimes say to me, if you have a lemon, you got to learn to turn it into lemonade. And those words came from my father. And those are words that stay with me to this day. That came from my father. Those are powerful words. And when I have challenging times in my life, I reflect oftentimes on words that my dad said to me. Or for him, he would always say, son, I believe in you. Whatever you want to do, you can do it. He always told me, he always said, you are the best. You can do whatever you want to do. And those words, although my dad has passed, still resonate in my spirit to this day. And so I'm very thankful. But it lets you know the power of words and the power of a father when he speaks positive words into his child. All right. Now, for more information on this show, you can go to our YouTube channel and just type in the Ferrell Phelps Show or Ferrell Phelps, and you'll see a lot of our shows pop up right there. And also our email address is let's talk about it 12tv@gmail.com. You can find out about us a little bit more there. And for these wonderful gentlemen, I'd like to first ask you, Pastor E.A. Deckard, how might somebody get in touch with you?
Well, the Greenhouse International Church, you can reach us at www.ghic.net. We have our weekly worship services right here in the city of Houston at Bama Middle School, which is 16711 Ella Boulevard, right off 1960. The Greenhouse International Church, every Sunday at 10 a.m.
All right. All right, Mr. Deric Muhammad, how might we get in touch with you?
You can contact me at www.projectforwardhouston.com. My email address is there, and you can email myself or some of the other members of Project Forward. Go there and find all about the Day of Encouragement for Black Fathers. And we just want to ask everybody to this Father's Day 2014, find a black father and encourage him.
Yes.
It don't cost you nothing to encourage.
I think that's fantastic. And I'm going to encourage you guys to go out on June the 15th, which is next Sunday.
Yes.
To celebrate with these guys as we empower our African-American brothers in the city of Houston. Please go out and support the vision that they have going on June 15th. And I think the time is 5 p.m. in McGregor Park.
Yes.
Right.
Which is located in South Houston.
South Park, I think it's called.
In South Park. But you guys saw the information that they did, that they
University
dispensed.
of Houston, right down the street from University of Houston.
Okay, right down from University of Houston. Go out and support this. I don't know if I'll be able to make it, but I tell you what, I'll be there in spirit.
Beautiful.
Because, and I'd like to also find out from y'all how I might get involved in helping out in some way too.
Project Forward.
Right.
Project Forward, there it is. All right, thanks so much for joining me on this edition of the Ferrell Phelps Show. Until next time, folks, we'll see you then.